All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Johnson, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to today's Safeoclock Health and Safety Interactive Workshop. This is a workshop where we meet virtually weekly and discuss health and safety related topics. So for this week, we are looking at health and safety in the road transport industry. So this topic is in continuation with our schedule that we'll be talking about health and safety in different industries until we're able to touch most, if not all, the industries where people work, where health and safety is implemented. So last week, we discussed about health and safety in the facilities management industry. So today we are talking about health and safety in the transportation industry, specifically the road transportation. So next week, we'll also look at another segment of health and safety in a different industry. So as our culture has been, I'll start with a brief presentation, after which others can contribute or ask questions for clarifications, and then we'll share our experience in the process as well. So my presentation will not be too long because I will try to summarize all that we can see in the transportation industry. First, I will start with the role of safety in the transport industry. I will also look at some of the legal regulations in the transport industry. I'll also look at some health and safety procedures that are applicable to transportation industry. I'll look at the basic roles of a safety officer in this industry. I will conclude with journey management plan, the benefits, the key concept of journey management plan, and how it is implemented in this industry. So let's start with what are the roles of safety in transport industry? For people who have not been in this industry as health and safety professionals, it looks like it's a very easy industry to work in. It's something so relaxing and less hazardous. But there are a lot of things going on in the industry that you need to be aware of. So health and safety plays a major role in this industry to prevent accidents and protect lives. Because you know that transport or transportation involves movement of people from a place to the other, from one point to the other. And in most times, this movement involves multiple of people. And during that movement, there is an interaction with other road users. So it's not like the vehicle or the bus or the mode of transportation is moving on the road and it's the only thing that is on that road at that particular time. So there is an interaction between that fleet and other road users. It could be motorcycles, it could be bicycles, it could be buses, it could be trailers, it could be heavy equipment. So those interactions with other road users makes this movement a high-risk one. If it is only the driver, if it's only the vehicle that the transport industry that has a health and safety professional, it's what is moving on that road at that particular time, then it will be safer or it will be easier to manage the risk or manage the outcomes. But because there are other factors associated or that comes in between this movement, then that is where health and safety comes in to ensure that the driver or the person driving those fleets are safety conscious so that they will play their own role in preventing more hazardous events. or preventing accident on the road. So the role of safety in transport industry is first to protect lives. If we are able to get our own company drivers to be compliant with traffic laws, regulations, and systems of that country, then they will be able to help to a certain extent prevent road traffic accidents, which will also protect lives. Another role of safety is cargo protection. In transportation, you are moving tools, you are moving equipment, you are moving assets from one location to the other. So if safety is not implemented, or if safety is not taken care of, if there is no proper safety measures in place, so those items might not reach their destination in one piece. So that is why the role of safety in this industry is also not just to protect lives, but also to protect those goods, those equipment, those tools, those items that are being transported. Another role of safety is to ensure regulatory compliance. Every country or every region have certain laws or certain regulations as regards to use of those roads or as regards to traffic management. So safety in any transport industry helps to ensure that that organization is complying with those legal requirements. It helps to reduce accidents and injuries. When the drivers get involved in accidents, then they will definitely have injuries. Their families will feel the pain. So ensuring proper safety in transportation industry does not just prevent the drivers getting injured, but also it removes the other costs associated with those accidents, especially when it has to do with affecting the families and how they feel those incidents. Also, it helps in enhancing operational efficiency. If there is adequate safety measures or if there is adequate safety control in that organization, then their operation will be efficient. For instance, if the safety department or safety in that transport organization is implementing preventive maintenance, inspections, then it will help to ensure that there will be no breakdowns, there will be no unforeseen circumstances along the road. Then it is helping to get that operation efficient. There will be no losses, there will be no disappointment to customers. So the operation will be efficient. Safety in this industry also helps in incorporating technologies, because in most situations, the safety team in transport industries will not be physically present or physically available with the driver all the time. So they rely on technology to ensure adequate monitoring. So safety in this industry pushes for incorporation of technology to ensure that the drivers are adequately monitored and adequately supervised. In other industries, like in the construction industry, where all the workforce, all the workers are located in the same location. So a safety officer can just be in that location, monitor them, supervise them, give them corrections. But for the transportation industry, you see that you might have 20, 30 drivers, and they are located in different parts of the country. But you, as a safety officer, you are in a particular location. So technology is what helps to ensure that you adequately monitor their operation, you adequately monitor their movement, and you can be able to tell where they are, what they are doing, how they are able to drive at any point in time, and you can use those records or those data to improve your health and safety and also the operation in that organization. So that is why safety in transport industries is a key player in ensuring that technologies, advancement in technologies are being incorporated in transportation industry. Okay, so let's look at some of the responsibilities of a safety practitioner in this transport industry. The first one is developing and implementing safety policies. So certain policies required for the safe operation of this industry should be developed by efficient, proficient, and competent health and safety professionals. So that is part of their job. If you are aiming to work in the transport industry, one of your roles or one of your responsibilities will involve developing, implementing safety policies. Just like in other industries where you have worked, there are policies, there are safety policies, safety procedures, safety plans. All these things are also applicable in the transportation industry. So you'll be developing and you'll be implementing them in that workplace. Conducting safety inspections and audits. Just like you conduct inspections in your workplace, maybe in the construction industry or oil and gas industry. In transportation industry also, we conduct safety inspections and audits. Depending on what your health and safety management system says, your audit could be every 6 months or every year. So it depends on your organization and what your management system have indicated. Safety inspections. Safety inspections is conducted on the vehicles, is conducted on the fleets, the buses, all the fleets used in that industry. There is a checklist used to conduct inspections on them. There's also inspection conducted in the warehouse, the parking areas, the accommodations, the eatery facilities. So safety inspections are also conducted in those locations within the transport industry. Training and education. So as safety officer or safety professional in the transport industry, you're also responsible for conducting safety trainings like defensive driving training, internal incident reporting trainings, emergency evacuation procedure training. So you are also responsible for conducting those trainings and giving elevating the knowledge of the drivers or the workforce within that industry. Accident investigation and reporting. The safety officer is also within the capacity of investigating accident, being part of the accident investigation team, conducting efficient accident investigation, and reporting these findings to the higher management. Ensuring regulatory compliance. This is part of the duty of safety officers also to ensure that those regulatory requirements as regards to the industry is complied to by the implementing team, by the transportation team, by drivers, by safety officers, and by other office holders in the industry. Is also responsible for coordinating emergency response and crisis management. So as you know, the transport industry is a place where the vehicles are in motion almost every time. So there is high chances of accident occurring. So when these accidents occur, there could be, there are responses that the drivers should carry out. How do they react? The emergency response plans, the crisis management. So the safety officer develops these plans, these procedures, and ensure that they are implemented. Risk assessment. Just like in other industries, we conduct risk assessment for all the operations, all the routes, all the locations. You conduct risk assessment to ensure that all the hazards identified within those routes are adequately mitigated and control measures are put in place, and the drivers are aware of those risks and hazards associated with those locations. Safety officer is also involved in performance monitoring and continuous improvement. He also collaborates with stakeholders like the fleet management team, the cleaning team, the warehouse team. So he coordinates with all the stakeholders that are involved in these operations. The safety officer also conduct safety trainings and awareness programs. Like during summer, we conduct heat stress training. During fog, we conduct awareness programs, trainings, traffic-related awareness trainings and programs. So this is part of the responsibilities of a safety officer in this industry. Let's look at some of the legal regulations in this industry. So one is driver qualification and hours of service. The legal requirement in this part says that the drivers must have specific qualifications before they're allowed to drive. For instance, the driver must be not less than 18 years old. He should have a particular category of license depending on the fleet or the vehicle he's going to be driving. And he must be in a good health condition, starting from eyesight. He must have a very good eyesight. He must have he must be healthy, and all these are certain qualifications that the driver must meet before he's allowed to man that steering or to drive that vehicle. Vehicle standards and maintenance. Depending on the type of vehicle, depending on the type of fleet that is that organization uses, it must meet those standards set out for that particular type of vehicles. And the maintenance routine, some maintenance are carried out maybe after 25,000 kilometers. Some vehicles require preventive maintenance to be carried out after 15,000 kilometers. So this is part of the standard and maintenance of that vehicle. And it's a legal requirement, not just a voluntary requirement that you must meet. Cargo securement. So like in different organizations have their requirement for any cargo or any object that is being moved to be properly secured. For example, in Qatar, you cannot move loose items from place to other without being properly secured. And you cannot allow the items to protrude or exit outside the boundaries of that vehicle. Okay, so the item or the cargo must be properly secured before it can be moved from location to the other. Hazardous materials movement and handling also. Like in transportation industry, they move all items. So you are not permitted to move hazardous materials if you don't have license to move those materials. So hazardous materials transportation, you must get that permit and you must comply with the regulatory requirement for movement of that hazardous materials. There's also another regulatory requirement for electronic logging devices. You can see in most public transport, there is electronic logging devices whereby when the driver comes in, the driver first have to log in. He will log in his details. He has a particular code or a specific number for him as the driver. He will have to log in, set his route. If he's moving from point A to city B, he will set his route. Everything will be clearly showing. So when we are tracking, when the safety officer or the IVMS data monitoring team is tracking, they know who is manning a particular vehicle, the route where he's supposed to be, and where he is at the moment. So that is what electronic logging device regulation says, that every driver must be properly logged in, and that login will help in the tracking in case of any eventuality or in case there's need for rescue. Speed limiters and automatic emergency braking system. So this is another requirement that requires that heavy equipment or long buses should have speed limiters, enabling the driver to not overspeed or to not cross beyond a particular speed limit. For instance, particular bus could be set to not drive beyond 100 kilometer per hour. So that is what speed limiters do. So depending on that country, depending on the organization, they will have a specific speed limit for each category of vehicle. Maybe light vehicles, buses, heavy equipment, they have speed categories. So these speed limiters help the organization to put a stop mark at the speed, the highest speed that vehicle will go beyond, that cannot go beyond. Okay. Now, another regulation is the drug and alcohol testing. This regulation mandates the transport industries to regularly test the alcohol and drugs status of their employees, of the drivers. Driver is not allowed to be driving while intoxicated or while under the influence of any alcohol or drugs. So it's the legal requirement that the transport industry operators test their drivers regularly to check their status as regards to drugs and alcohol. Let's look at some of the safety procedures we encounter in this industry, in transport industry. The first one is driver training and assessment. Drivers must undergo defensive driving. They must undergo driving training before you can be licensed or permitted to drive a particular vehicle. And that your driving license must be the category of the vehicle you drive. You cannot be licensed to drive light vehicle and you start driving heavy vehicle. So that is one of the safety procedures that is implemented in this industry. Regular assessment. There is periodic assessment of health of the workers. At least a minimum of every year, all the drivers must undergo health fitness assessment. So this helps to determine their level of health and the type of situations that they may have fallen into within the past 1 year. So another one is hazardous materials management. As transport industry, they generate a lot of hazardous waste. For example, the chemicals they use in this part of the world, in our own organization, we use a particular hazardous substance known as AdBlue. AdBlue helps to reduce the emission of CO into the environment. So it makes it more efficient and makes the vehicle more environmental friendly. So this is a hazardous material that is being generated in the industry. Some generate used oils, some generate other hazardous materials. So it should be properly handled. There is segregation area. They should be properly segregated and disposed according to the legal requirement of that country. Okay. So another one is vehicle and maintenance, vehicle inspection and maintenance. There is pre-use inspection of fleets. If your organization or if the transport company receives new fleet from the manufacturer or from the supplier, pre-use inspection is carried out by the safety professional and the other operational team. During this inspection, they check if what is contained in that manual or that manufacturer's handbook is exactly what we have on ground. Then the safety officer checks for the safety equipment, they check for the braking system, they check for the signages, they check for the firefighting, they check for emergency communication equipment, they check for all the safety related equipment like first aid kits. So this is what we do in the pre-use inspection. Okay, so there is also maintenance, routine maintenance, preventive maintenance. This is for preventive maintenance, there's a particular kilometers that each vehicle will have to undergo preventive maintenance. For example, the industry or the organization might set their own preventive maintenance to 15,000 kilometers. So after the vehicle have covered 15,000 kilometers, it must go to the workshop and undergo preventive maintenance where the oil is changed, the filters are changed, all the other related parts are changed and maintained to prevent a breakdown. Okay. Then the other procedure that we carry out is warehouse safety. Of course, in this industry, parts, vehicle parts, tools, equipment, they are all stored in the warehouse, not outside. So the safety procedures in the warehouse is applicable here, like proper stacking, working at height, manual handling procedures, safe use of ladders, and all those procedures in the warehouse industry is applicable here as well. Then the other one is environmental protection, how to mitigate hazardous waste into the environment. So in this procedure, the organization puts in place certain measures like ensuring there is waste bin inside the fleet, ensuring that the drivers are well trained, are informed about environmental protections and environmental awareness. So speed kits are made available at the workshop, those areas where there could be easily spill of oil, diesel. So speed kits, spill response program is made available. The drivers are trained on how to respond to spill. So the other one is health and safety audits. Like I said before, audits are conducted just like in other industries, depending on the health and safety management system of that organization. It could be every 6 months, could be every year as well. Continuous improvement. After the audit, after the inspections, implementations are done to ensure that there is improvement in that place. Emergency preparedness plan. So in this industry also, there is emergency preparedness plan. It might not be exactly like in construction or other industries, but this depends on the type of emergency that we envisage in this industry. Like if there is fire outbreak for vehicles using CNG, or if there is a road traffic accident. So these are certain types of emergencies that we envisage, and the procedures, the plans of how to rescue the drivers and the passengers if they are carrying items or materials, how to rescue them. These are all contained in the emergency response plan and procedure. So now let's look at journey management plan. Journey management plan is a specific procedure or a specific plan implemented in the transportation industry to ensure the efficiency of that movement. Transportation is all about moving passengers or moving items, moving goods from one point to the other. So journey management plan is in place to ensure that that particular movement in that particular route is safe. So during the journey management plan, they do a trip necessity planning. You check if this trip is very, very necessary at this time. If this trip, maybe there is fog, maybe it's raining, first of all, you have to check if that trip is necessary, if it can be postponed, if it can be avoided. That is the first stage or the first step in the journey management plan. Then if that journey is necessary, then you do route planning. Route planning is a situation whereby you consider different types of different routes to choose from. Maybe you have to go from point A, B, C, D, and come back to A. You can decide to choose to go from point C, D, B, and come back to A. So that is route planning. You choose which one is safer, which of the routes has less traffic, which of the routes have less hazard or less risk, or that will take less time as well. So that is what you consider in that route planning. Then pre-trip planning, you do vehicle inspection. You check for the fitness of that vehicle, if the vehicle is able to go to that length or that extent, or to go for that trip. You check for the driver's fitness, if the driver is okay, if it's a long journey, if he can embark on this journey. You check also for the documentation of those vehicles and the drivers, if the documents are all intact. Now, in that journey management plan, you do risk assessment. Having known the route that the driver is going to check, you do risk assessment of what are the particular hazards that could be available along that route. Maybe high traffic, maybe a lot of heavy equipment, maybe bad road, maybe a foggy area. So those are certain types of hazard that could exist along a particular route that you will identify, and you put some control measures. Maybe if the fog comes early in the morning, you can decide to shift your journey to later in the day when the fog must have cleared. That is part of the control measures you can put in place. Now, the other thing you involve in the journey management plan is communication and monitoring. You have to have in place a means of communicating with the driver. Like we know, is against road traffic rules to use mobile phones while driving. So you must have a way of communicating with the driver. You must have a way of reaching out to the driver and knowing exactly what the driver is doing. That comes where we use in-vehicle monitoring system, IVMS. So this in-vehicle monitoring system is a technology embedded in most of the transportation vehicles that from your system, from wherever you are, you can be able to know the particular location of the driver. You can be able to know the speed limit the driver is driving at a particular time. You can be able to see inside the vehicle, inside the bus. You can be able to see the surroundings. So you can be able to also know how the driver is braking. If he's braking sharply, if he's overspeeding, if he's tailgating. So this is one of the uses of this IVMS, okay, for communication and for monitoring of the drivers. So you should also, the vehicle also have an emergency contact means. There is panic button that the driver can press, and that signal will come to the monitoring room, whereby the information goes out, maybe something is wrong, maybe the driver is in need of help, or so that means of communication must be properly put in place. Now, post-trip review. After the trip has been completed, we must do a review of what happened, what the driver saw on the way, the analysis of how the driver drove, what if the driver drove safely or not, the hazards that we are in that route. So this post-trip review helps you to plan better for next trip. So maybe if that particular route was busy at certain time during that particular journey, during the post-trip review, you'll be able to know that from so time to so time, that route is busy. You can be able to use a different route. So that is what a journey management plan entails. What are the benefits? Benefit of journey management plan is it enhances safety. If you have properly planned, if you have identified the hazards, if you have been able to take cautions, take proper precautions and control measures, then the safety of the driver will be enhanced and the driver will be safe. Even the passengers, the items, the goods being transported will be safe as well. It also helps in operational efficiency. There will be no room for disappointment. There will be no room for misunderstanding. Everything goes as planned. That is one of the benefits of journey management plan. Then regulatory compliance. The driver and the organization is now in compliance with what the law says, it's in compliance with what the local authority have said as regard to journey management and traffic regulations. So this is what journey management plan helps to achieve in this industry. Okay, so I've been able to give us a brief summary of what happens in transport industry, and I believe we also have some experience or knowledge to contribute, or better, maybe a question of some areas that I did not touch. All right, so I'll leave the room floor open in case we have some contributions.
Yes,
Hello, everyone.
Good evening. Yeah, good evening.
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay. Good evening, and thank you so much for your brilliant presentation, Johnson. Please, you basically touched everything. However, I do want to make a few additions. Yes, road transportation safety management is very, very important in all sectors of the economy, especially in the transportation and haulage industries, as well as the oil and gas sector, where most of us are working. Just like we have international standards for the management of health and safety, as well as environment. So I'm talking about ISO 40001 for environment and ISO 45001 for health and safety. We also have a standard for road transport safety management. What happened was that in 2010, the United Nations realized that there was an average of 1.5 million people that are being lost to road transport accident every year. So following those staggering figures, the United Nations mandated the Organization for International Standardization to come up with a standard for the management of road transport safety management. So following this mandate, the International Organization for Standardization, what we commonly refer to as ISO, came up with ISO 39001 2012. This was in 2012. Then the standard was reviewed in 2018, but there was no much changes during that review. So it still retained its original number of 39,001 2012. And like you rightly mentioned, these organizations are audited against compliance, just like we have a health and safety environment, like I mentioned the when they come to an organization to say they want to audit their road safety management system, they are actually being audited against their compliance with ISO 39001. And just like you have with the other QHSE standard, leadership commitment is also very, very important in the implementation or management of a road transportation safety. If leadership commitment is not strong, it will affect the overall management system of the road transport safety management system. Then some of the, yes, you are correct, the organizations have to come up with policies. They develop procedures for the management of and implementation of this standard. And some of the policies that an organization that is serious with road safety transport management system can come up with. One is revised parking, mandatory wearing of seat belts. Then the duration a driver can drive and take some break. I think in the standard it is 3 hours. After 3 hours of continuous driving, a driver should take a minimum of 15 minutes rest. This is to make sure that drivers do not drive under fatigue conditions, and which is also implemented in most of the oil and gas companies. So these are the few things I feel I should add to what you have presented. Thank you so much for your presentation. Very brilliant.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson, for that wonderful contribution. Those are very brilliant and very important. Thank you. David, do you have anything to add?
Yes, thank you for the presentation, and also Jackson. It's always good to hear from you, bringing your experience and your points. However, I just want to ask some questions because some few months ago, I went on a survey in our logistics department in the company. I was privileged to go with some of the material, the trailer shifting materials from the factory, from the warehouse to the new site. So I realized that there are actually some specific routes designated only for heavy equipment in the municipality. This is a route designated only for some certain vehicles. They are not allowed to go beyond that point. And also in the course of the journey, also I realized that there is a minimum load capacity required for this trailer to convey from one point to the other. It should not exceed this load capacity. So when they convey these materials from one point to the other, they have to undergo the checks. They have to go there, they have to weigh what they are carrying before they can proceed. If they exceed that limit, the vehicle will be detained and the driver's license will be, I think it will be confiscated and the company will be fined. So there is a certain load capacity that they should not exceed. So for you people who are into the industry full time, how can a company avoid this kind of fines? Because from the loading point, we don't have the resources to take this measurement. We just assume, based on assumption, it is loaded. And then while conveying this material from one point to the other, we have to go for this mandatory check. So this is my question. Thank you.
Okay. That is a very, very interesting question and is applicable to organize the countries and those places where things are working as it should be. What happens is in my own organization, we have a weigh bridge whereby any waste materials or any items that we are removing from here goes through the weigh bridge so that we know how many tons, we know the weight that it is before it leaves the workplace. So this is what the standard, this is what the local regulation of traffic management in Qatar requires. So depends on that organization, they're supposed to have this. So some organizations that doesn't have the capacity or doesn't want to put this type of control measures, they do only gazing. They do gaze work. And while doing gaze work, it's not the best in this part of the world because you'll be caught. So there is a weighing machine there's a weighing machine for these industries that people that are working full-time in transportation and movement of heavy equipment or heavy tools or heavy items, they have this weighing machine. And all of them know the weight limit of that particular route. It depends on the route you are following. You know, those exits that are made for those heavy equipment is where you will meet a overhead bridge, where there are bridge, where there are maybe a flyovers. So because those loads can impact on those roads, so they have to divert them to a safer route. So that is why those organizations should have weighing machines in their site. But if they don't have, then they have to face this type of situations on the road. That's my contribution. Maybe Justin have something to add.
Yes, let me add something briefly. With regards to the prohibition of which road not to drive, and permission of which road to drive, two things. One, to minimize the risk to other road users, smaller vehicles. Then secondly, is for engineering reason. Every road is designed and constructed for a particular weight level. So if the road has been designed and constructed for traffic of between 500,000 to 3.5 tons, I mean, when I say 500,000 kilograms to 3.5 or 4 tons, then a truck of about 10 tons or 15 tons will not be allowed to drive on that road, because if it drives on that road, it will destroy the road. So there are roads that are specifically designed and constructed for heavy load traffic. And that is why heavy vehicles like trailers are not allowed to ply most roads that smaller vehicles are applying. In a place like the UAE, heavy vehicles, 10-wheelers, 16-wheelers, and so on and so forth, there are specific roads they can drive on. Beside that, heavy vehicles are not allowed to drive on the main highways in the daytime. Their movements are mostly limited to night time. Nighttime meaning from 6 p.m. From 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. For instance, if you have a dump truck or a trailer that is coming to deliver goods to your site in the UAE, except it passes that designated road. But should the location the driver is going to is such that it cannot avoid being on the non-designated road, one, the load has to be taken into consideration. And secondly, there has to be a permit from the local authority authorizing the vehicle to be on the public road at that particular time. Or else, they cannot just take their truck and drive it straight into the main highway where SUVs and other smaller vehicles are flying. No, they don't do that. So basically, it is for safety reasons. One, to minimize the risk to other road users, smaller vehicle users. And secondly, to preserve the integrity of the road. If the road has not been designed and constructed for the weight of the vehicle plus the load that the vehicle is carrying, the vehicle will not be allowed to drive on that road. That is why under ODC, Oversize Dimensional Cargo Transportation, you must get in touch with the local authority. You present the map of which route you want to take from point A to point B, assuming that some heavy cargoes are going to be moved from the port to your construction site. You present the route plan to the local authority. They will have to go through and approve it. If it is such that is going to require additional traffic management, they have to do so. In which case, the traffic department will be contacted. They will have to close some road at that particular time of the day that your cargo will pass through that road. So these are the reasons why heavy vehicles and their cargoes are not allowed to ply some roads. If another person has additional idea, you can as well add. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jackson. You've done justice to that. UG, who is UG? Do you have anything to add or to ask before we call it a day?
I have one more question.
Okay, go ahead.
What are the necessary materials or the dimension of load that requires a police escort? Because I have seen in some scenarios where we are shifting portal cabin, we are shifting portal cabin from one area to the other point. We are told that a police escort is required to move during this process. So what is the criteria for this one? Because is it a general requirement for transporting porter cabin, or is it a porter cabin of a specific dimension? Or is it in a general law that once you're transporting material, oversized material, you have to actually coordinate for an escort to follow you while you are conveying this material? Thank you.
Okay, I will add a bit before Jason comes in. So in this particular procedure is majorly evident in Qatar, though I've not been, don't know about others. So what happened is that, just like Jason said, if you want to move a heavy material, you need to get permission from the Ministry of Transport, from the Transport Ministry. So when you go to the ministry to get this permission, that is when they will ask you for what you want to move. So looking at what you want to move, looking at the size, and looking at the potential risk it will put on the road at that particular time, one of the safety measures or one of the precautionary measures to ensure that hazards or those risks are mitigated is to have the presence of police with their siren and with their escorting that item. So is a requirement from this traffic department, not majorly a standard, but is a risk mitigation strategy that they put in place. So when you go to take your permit, when you go to apply for permit for this movement, they will ask you the type of items, not just heavy items. If you are moving explosives around Qatar, you must be escorted by a police. Okay, so it depends on the item you want to move, not just porter cabin. If you want to move a very long beam, even if that beam is not too heavy, but it's very long, that is exceeding the length of the trailer that you're using to carry it, then you must also be escorted by traffic police. So they will look at the load that you want to move when you're applying for that the permit to move this load. Then they will tell you the requirement. So, but basically, this is one of the criteria for requiring a police escort. So, Mr. Jackson, you have something to add there?
Yes, let me quickly add something. You will recall that during my contribution, I mentioned ODC, Oversize Dimensional Cargo. Oversize Dimensional Cargo, although it depends on organization, but a place like BGC, which is using a mostly share procedure, and RU, BP, oversized cargo is classified as any cargo that is more than 4 meters wide and 4.5 meters high. If you are moving any cargo of this dimension, it is considered as an oversized dimensional cargo. And there are specific requirements for this for its movement. For instance, one pilot vehicle will be in front of the trailer bearing the load, and another one will be at the back. Then there will be a police clearance for some route that it will pass, like I mentioned earlier on. For instance, the time of the day that that cargo is going to be transported, no smaller vehicle will be allowed to ply that road at that particular period, because the width of the load is almost taking both sides, the full width of the road. So this is one of the conditions that a police permit will have to be required. Then, like Johnson also said, if the transportation, if the cargo involves the movement of explosive materials, like companies that are doing blasting of mountains, because of the dangerous nature of the cargo, police escort will also be required. In this case, there will be members of the police department from the ballistic unit. So they will be available to escort the truck to its final destination. So these are the two conditions I'm aware of that could require some restriction or require police escort before such movement is made. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Jackson, for that wonderful clarification.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. That is so. I want to thank you all for joining today. It was a very fruitful time. I learned a lot myself as well. So thank you for joining, and see you again next week.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a nice weekend. Thank you.
All right.